A very good thing happened to me there. It was the first production that I actually worked on. I went to the readings.
Jack Nicholson has lived one of the most legendary lives Hollywood has ever seen. Fame, fortune, unforgettable roles, and a reputation as one of the industry's most magnetic leading men followed him for decades. He dated supermodels, actresses, and some of the most beautiful women in the world. From wild parties to red carpet romances, Nicholson's love life became almost as famous as his performances. Yet now, at 88, the truth behind all that glamour sounds far more complicated and far more heartbreaking. Despite countless relationships, insiders say there was one woman who stayed with him long after the cameras stopped rolling. One relationship that never truly faded, no matter how famous he became or how many people passed through his life. Friends claim that even in his later years, Jack would quietly bring her up, not with regret exactly, but with a kind of emotional honesty he rarely showed in public. This wasn't just another Hollywood fling. It was a love shaped by timing, ambition, and choices that couldn't be undone. A relationship that ended not because the feelings disappeared, but because life, ego, and career demands pulled them apart. Today, as Nicholson lives a far more private life, this long-buried confession has given fans a rare glimpse into the emotional cost behind his legendary status. So who was the woman Jack Nicholson never got over? And why did losing her leave a mark deeper than any role he ever played? Jack Nicholson's name has long been synonymous with rebellion, charisma, and unapologetic freedom. From the moment he rose to fame in the late 1960s and early 1970s, he crafted an image that few actors could rival: intense, unpredictable, and irresistibly magnetic. While his career soared with iconic performances that defined entire generations of cinema, his personal life followed a far more complicated path. Despite countless romances and a reputation as Hollywood's ultimate bachelor, there was one relationship that stood apart from all the rest. That woman was Anjelica Huston. Their relationship, which lasted on and off for nearly 2 decades, was unlike anything Nicholson experienced before or after. They met at a time when both were rising stars, deeply creative and emotionally intense. What began as attraction quickly evolved into something deeper, a bond rooted in mutual understanding, shared ambition, and a rare emotional chemistry. Those close to them described their connection as powerful but volatile, filled with passion that neither fully knew how to control. Jack and Anjelica's relationship was never simple. Nicholson's lifestyle, fueled by fame, excess, and constant attention, clashed with Anjelica's desire for emotional stability and respect. While Jack was deeply drawn to her strength and intelligence, he struggled to change patterns that had defined his life for years. Friends later revealed that Jack loved Anjelica in a way that frightened him, because it required sacrifice, commitment, and vulnerability he wasn't always ready to give. Despite the chaos, the two shared moments of genuine tenderness. They supported each other's careers, celebrated successes together, and leaned on one another during difficult times. Anjelica stood by Jack through professional pressures and personal struggles, offering grounding when his life threatened to spiral out of control. In return, Jack admired her deeply, not just for her beauty, but for her independence and emotional depth. Yet, admiration alone wasn't enough to sustain what they had. The breaking point came when Anjelica realized that love without security was slowly eroding her sense of self. Repeated disappointments and emotional distance made it clear that Jack, for all his affection, could not offer the kind of partnership she needed. When the relationship finally ended for good, it wasn't marked by explosive drama, but by quiet heartbreak. Jack reportedly took the separation far harder than he ever admitted publicly. Years later, friends noticed a shift in Nicholson. Though he continued to date and socialize, there was a noticeable absence of emotional investment. According to those close to him, Jack often reflected on Anjelica with a mix of regret and respect, acknowledging that she was the one person who truly saw him, not the movie star, not the legend, but the flawed man behind the image. Unlike other relationships that faded into memory, hers lingered. As Jack aged and gradually retreated from public life, those reflections grew more pronounced. He became more introspective, less interested in fleeting connections, and more aware of the emotional cost of choices made decades earlier. While he never framed it as a formal confession, his actions and quiet comments made one thing clear: Angelica Houston was the woman he never truly moved on from. Losing her wasn't just the end of a relationship. It was the closing of a chapter he never managed to rewrite. After the final separation from Angelica Houston, Jack Nicholson's life continued to look enviable from the outside. He remained one of the most powerful and respected figures in Hollywood, surrounded by admiration, opportunity, and attention wherever he went. Yet those closest to him noticed that something essential had shifted. The carefree confidence that once defined him slowly gave way to a quieter, more guarded version of the man fans thought they knew. Jack continued dating, but none of the relationships carried the same emotional weight. Friends later revealed that he kept most people at arm's length, unwilling to invest deeply in love again. The heartbreak he experienced with Angelica left a lasting imprint, teaching him that genuine emotional connection came with risks he wasn't prepared to face twice. While he rarely spoke about regret publicly, his private reflections suggested a man deeply aware of the cost of his choices. Professionally, Jack threw himself into his work. Acting became both an escape and a form of emotional expression. His performances during this period carried an added layer of depth, as if unresolved feelings were finding their way into his roles. Directors and co-stars observed a new seriousness behind his intensity, a sense that he was channeling real emotional experience rather than pure performance. Many believe this period produced some of his most nuanced and compelling work. Despite his continued success, personal milestones passed quietly. Jack never married Angelica, and the life he might have built with her became an unspoken what if. Friends have said that he often spoke about her with respect rather than bitterness, acknowledging her strength and independence. There was no resentment, only an understanding that timing, immaturity, and personal priorities had shaped an ending neither truly wanted. As the years went on, Jack gradually withdrew from Hollywood spotlight. His public appearances became rare, and his circle grew smaller. Those close to him describe a man who became increasingly reflective, spending more time alone and less time chasing the excitement that once defined him. In these quieter moments, memories of Angelica resurfaced more frequently, not as pain, but as a reminder of a connection that had once felt real and grounding. Age brought perspective Jack never had in his younger years. He reportedly acknowledged that fame and freedom, while intoxicating, had come at the expense of emotional permanence. The relationships that followed Angelica lacked depth, not because he couldn't love again, but because he never fully opened himself the way he once had. That emotional wall built as protection also became a barrier to true companionship. Today, those close to Jack say he speaks of Angelica as a defining chapter of his life rather than a mistake. She represents the person who challenged him, understood him, and saw beyond his public persona. Losing her forced him to confront truths about himself that no award or success could erase. While Jack Nicholson never staged a dramatic confession, his quiet reflections tell a clearer story than words ever could. The woman he never got over wasn't just a former lover. She was the mirror that showed him who he truly was. As Jack Nicholson entered his later years, the world saw less of the outspoken Hollywood rebel and more of a private, introspective figure. Public appearances became rare, interviews almost non-existent. To fans, it seemed like a simple retreat from fame, but those close to Jack understood there was something deeper happening. Aging forced him to slow down, and in that stillness, memories he once outran finally caught up with him. Among them, one name resurfaced again and again: Angelica Houston. Unlike many of his past relationships, Angelica remained emotionally significant long after their romance ended. Friends have said that Jack never spoke of her casually. When she came up in conversation, his tone reportedly changed, softer, more thoughtful, as if he were revisiting a chapter that still carried weight. There was no bitterness in his voice, only acknowledgement that what they shared had been rare and irreplaceable. What made that relationship endure in his memory was not just love, but authenticity. With Angelica, Jack didn't have to perform or impress. She challenged him intellectually and emotionally, refusing to be overshadowed by his fame. For a man who spent much of his life surrounded by admiration, her honesty was grounding. It forced him to confront his flaws, his fear of commitment, his restless nature, and his tendency to prioritize freedom over stability. In later years, Jack reportedly recognized that Angelica had offered him something no one else did: emotional partnership without illusion. She loved him fully, but she also demanded respect and consistency. When those needs went unmet, she chose herself. That decision, painful as it was, left a lasting impression on Jack. He came to understand that love isn't just about intensity, it's about responsibility, timing, and mutual growth. As he reflected on his life, Jack acknowledged that many of his greatest regrets weren't professional. Awards, acclaim, and iconic roles brought fulfillment, but they didn't replace the emotional security he had once brushed aside. The realization arrived late, but it arrived honestly. According to those close to him, Jack admitted that losing Angelica wasn't fate or bad luck. It was the result of choices he made when he didn't yet understand their consequences. This awareness didn't bring despair, but it did bring clarity. Jack no longer romanticized the chaos of his younger years. Instead, he viewed them as lessons, necessary but costly. Angelica became a symbol of that cost, representing the life he could have had if he had been ready to change. Even so, he expressed gratitude for the time they shared, recognizing that their relationship shaped him in ways nothing else ever did. Today, Jack Nicholson lives quietly, far from the spotlight that once defined him. Yet behind closed doors, his reflections reveal a man at peace with his past, but still touched by one enduring truth. The woman he never got over wasn't simply a lost love, she was the emotional turning point of his life. And in understanding that, Jack finally made peace with the man he used to be. In the final chapter of Jack Nicholson's story, the focus shifts from regret to acceptance. By the time he reached his late 80s, Jack was no longer chasing validation, attention, or excitement. The man who once thrived on chaos and freedom now lived a quieter life, shaped by reflection rather than impulse. And within that stillness, the truth he had long avoided became impossible to ignore. Some losses stay with you, not because they were mistakes, but because they mattered deeply. Jack's reflections on Angelica Houston were never framed as sorrow alone. Instead, they carried respect and understanding. He reportedly acknowledged that she left because she valued herself, not because love was absent. That realization reframed his view of the past. What once felt like abandonment became, in hindsight, an act of strength. And with that understanding came a sense of closure he hadn't known before. Friends say Jack eventually accepted that love doesn't always lead to permanence. Some relationships exist to teach, to challenge, and to reveal truths about ourselves. Angelica fulfilled all of those roles in his life. She wasn't meant to stay forever, but she was meant to leave a permanent mark. That awareness allowed Jack to stop viewing the relationship as unfinished and instead see it as complete in its own way. As his public presence faded, Jack found peace in simplicity, quiet routines, close relationships, and personal reflection. He no longer defined success by fame or conquest, but by honesty with himself. The emotional walls he once built remained, but they softened. He allowed himself to feel gratitude rather than longing, acknowledging that the love he shared with Angelica had shaped him into a wiser, more self-aware man. For fans, Jack Nicholson's late-life reflections offer a powerful reminder that even legends carry unresolved emotions. Behind every iconic performance is a human story filled with mistiming, difficult choices, and lessons learned too late. Jack's confession, though never shouted from a stage, resonates because of its quiet truth. The woman he never got over wasn't a symbol of failure. She was proof that real love leaves an imprint that fame can never erase. In the end, Jack's story isn't about loss, but about understanding. It's about recognizing that the most meaningful relationships aren't always the ones that last forever, but the ones that change us permanently. At 88, Jack Nicholson may have stepped away from the spotlight, but his emotional honesty shines brighter than ever. And through that honesty, he leaves behind a final, powerful message. Some loves don't end. They simply become part of who we are.